I want you to clear your minds and mentally lay out a house with the following. A bedroom with a king-size bed, a kitchen with 7 feet of counter space over custom cabinetry, a 30-inch extra deep sink, fridge, freezer, and other appliances, a home office with a sit-stand desk, an entertainment center with a 47-inch TV, surround sound, and a 7 by 5 foot L-shaped couch, and put a sweet gaming setup in there as well. I'm a bit of a nerd, I'm just going to get that out of the way. There's one bathroom, central heating, central vac, fresh air exchange, home automation with programmable LED lighting throughout, and make space for a 100-pound golden Rottweiler. So since you know what my talk is about, you've probably figured out where I'm going with this. I've just described my tiny house, which is 20 feet long by 8.5 feet wide. That's a footprint of 160 square feet, 250 if you include the loft. By going off just my list, you could easily imagine a medium-sized home, and one that sounds pretty comfortable, even when compared to the wealthy and privileged standards of a country like Canada. And it would sound like practically a mansion when compared to how a lot of people live around the world. It's built on a specialty trailer that allows for more insulation in the floor and more overall height. We went with a shed roof to maximize the interior volume. If you go through the front door, you'll enter into the kitchen. From there, if you turn right, you'll pass between a split bathroom, which is a shower stall on one side and a toilet plus sink on the other. You'll then enter into the living room, which is underneath the loft. The loft is essentially the bedroom and is 4 feet tall at its highest point, which is plenty of room to sit at. The source of heat for both space and water is propane, and all the other appliances, including cooking, are electric. Tiny houses have seen a significant increase in popularity over the last few years, but for the most part are an emergent phenomenon and are just one manifestation of a larger movement towards lifestyle simplification and minimalism. Many people still see them as a niche interest and probably just a trend. I mean, you have to be a self-sacrificing, eco-nut hipster to live like that, right? And there is some truth to that in the sense that not everyone builds a tiny house for what I would consider to be the right reasons. But if the root of an idea is genuinely good, it will persist beyond the 15 minutes of fame that it receives for its novelty. I think a lot of the misunderstanding about a shift towards minimalist living comes from the lack of a shared frame of reference. So humor me for a moment and let's back up to the extreme basics for what is required to live. I mean, we've got air to breathe, and we need food, water, and sleep. Great. But what is needed to live comfortably? A clean, dry, warm bed, clean running water, hot water in which to bathe, cooking facilities, bathroom facilities, and recreational space to relax or pursue your interests. Have I missed anything? Because it seems to me that anything more than this is not needed, it's desired. And I hate to use this word, but society and our culture, North American culture in particular, has slowly been evolving and in many ways distorting the widely accepted sense of what is normal, and thus the average frame of reference for a lifestyle. It's become normal for us to want more than we can reasonably obtain. Think about how much is bought on credit or loans. How often do people save up for big purchases? Houses and cars are rarely bought outright, but we've convinced ourselves that we deserve them now, or that we're somehow entitled to them, even though you could say that we can't actually afford them. But I've been seeing more and more people taking a step back and reevaluating their approach to life, and often finding that a tiny house is a piece of this puzzle. One of the themes of this TED event is innovation. I think the core driving force behind the decision to go tiny is the desire to reimagine one's lifestyle, to strip away everything that is either not critical or that does not bring joy or satisfaction. One might approach this task in a subtractive manner, thinking, what can I delete from my life in order to simplify it? But this can be dangerous because you're starting with that established frame of reference, which, if you feel the need to downsize, is probably bloated and you'll have so much to chip away at it can be overwhelming. Think of this as a top-down approach. So what about working from the bottom up? Going back to those extreme basics and then building additively, referencing nothing except for what you know about yourself. What kind of spaces do you need to perform your daily routines as well as your passions, hobbies, and work? And then what stuff do you need to complement those spaces? It can be surprising to learn just how short these lists are. When it comes to stuff, have you ever moved and been pulling boxes out of storage or closets and realized, man, I haven't touched this stuff since the last time I moved? Or even more to the point, I haven't even thought about it since the last time. When building from the bottom up, this kind of stuff won't even cross your mind. So after nurturing a list of what should be in your life and deciding that it's compatible with tiny living, the next step would be to design the house, often yourself. This is where you can get creative and really push the limits of what a living space can be. When building a full-size house, the resale value is a major consideration because it's such a huge investment. There's a strong incentive to take in a one-size-fits-all direction. But a tiny house is not really a good monetary investment, at least in a physical sense. Its strength lies in unrestricted customization, which is why designing yourself, taking full advantage of that, is, in my opinion, the only way to go. Of course, we did this with our own tiny nest. Everyone names their tiny houses because they are often one of a kind. And I should also mention that the tiny nest is a house for two, myself and my wife. Our top priorities were a king-size bed, lots of kitchen space, and what we lovingly refer to as the nerd station, which is something that had already evolved in some of our previous apartments. It's basically a computer hooked up to a TV with a desk in front and a couch further back. So it serves as a place to lounge and relax watching shows or playing games, but also as a workstation or home office. For our design, we started with a layout from an existing tiny house, but quickly found that the nerd station / living room fit really awkwardly. So after cherry picking some other good ideas that were out there, doing a lot of shuffling around, including mirroring the entire floor plan, we arrived at a design that is perfectly optimized for our priorities. And the main thing we're proud of here is that we stuck to what is real for us. When making a change like this, it could be easy to fantasize about, say, joining a book club and reading a lot more, or taking up charcoal sketching. But we like to binge on Netflix, and I like to fly internet spaceships. That's the shameless truth. So we were honest with ourselves, and we prioritized for that, and it's been awesome. The other thing I like about our design is how cramped it is. I'm half joking here, but what I mean is that a lot of other designs out there try to make the space feel as large as possible by opening it up. But we actually think that this makes the space feel smaller because the house is then just one room, so you're always in the same room. We managed to split our space up into 3 distinct areas, which feel separate. The result is that each space is smaller, but come on, it's a tiny house. If you go into this wanting it to feel as large as possible, you're going to be disappointed. So what's the impact on the big picture? Well, it should go without saying that a smaller structure requires less materials to build, less energy to heat, and can't store as many products. So there's less consumption involved overall. I find it really strange and somewhat alarming that we use the term consumer so carelessly that it's all but lost its meaning. We are consumers, but what are we consuming? Well, we're eating up all the raw materials needed to make all the products we buy, including building supplies for construction. And most of these resources are not being replenished fast enough, if at all. We're literally consuming the planet, and we know it's not sustainable. But even with the enlightenment brought to us by the age of information, we're having a really hard time breaking this bad habit. It's like we've built civilization on the wrong foundation. See what I did there? Consumption is driven by an economic system that does not serve to make life better for all, but to increase monetary wealth, often for only a few. So many of humanity's shortcomings have become painfully clear now that we can exchange information across the world in real time and analyze huge amounts of data with ease. And there's so much to get worked up about. Our monetary system, where we've got national debts that are mathematically impossible to repay, climate change, now the added debate over climate change, political blunders and social injustice everywhere. You can make yourself crazy. And while I think it's extremely beneficial to learn as much as you can, and that the spreading of diverse knowledge and understanding is probably the most important thing for humankind. I mean, that's what TED's all about, right? But an individual must be able to strike a balance with what to do with all this information. Most people aren't going to go out and change regulations or invent the next environment-saving device or go on a crusade to educate people. We can leave that last one to Bill Nye and Leonardo DiCaprio. Most of us have limited influential reach, but it can still be powerful when considered in context. When I was growing up, recycling was still in the process of being adopted. And I have this memory of a kid in elementary school just throwing a juice box on the ground. And at that impressionable age, I remember feeling like no matter how much effort I put in, there'd always be plenty of other people working against me to easily undo my progress. And that mentality stuck with me to some extent for a lot of my life. But with my recent shift towards minimalism, I've come to appreciate that my ability to have a positive influence does in fact lie in the simple things. And I think I've made my peace with that. There are some things that I know to be right, and so I just do them. And I'm also always looking to improve. The main benefit of living tiny or minimally is that it directly and indirectly reduces the demand for consumption, which is the fuel for the machine that has so many negative side effects. A full-on tiny house is not for everyone, but being more mindful of the impact that your lifestyle has is. Be the change that you want to see. Be realistic about what you need and modest about what you want. Thank you.